start recording. Okay, so we're set up here. I did have a few questions this week from people, nothing really specific to the quilt itself, except for one thing. People wanted to know how they could expand from the wall to the queen and where they needed to go to buy those pieces. So I'm going to show everybody that answer so that we can make sure that everyone knows. So let's see, I'll switch over here. You're going to see Mom and the website for a minute. I'll switch to Quiltworx. And on the Quiltworx page, let's fix this a little bit so you can see the whole page. Okay, so we have products, and then you're going to go to patterns, and you're going to go find Macaw. So there's a couple ways you can do it. Don't use the search up here because that does not work on our website. I mentioned that last time. We're going through some website updates, but in the meantime, you can sort A to Z or Z to A, or I happen to know that Macaw is on page 2, so I'm just going to go down and choose page 2 and open up Macaw. So under Macaw, there's a buy now button over here on the right. So I'm going to click buy now. And then, let's see, this may be actually be a little bit easier. Oops. Oh, what did I click on here? Okay, let's try this again. Products, patterns, Macaw on page 2. And then we're going to go down to Macaw. You can also click on that little buy now button right on that main page if you want. Hold on here. Let's go. We are starting officially at 1 o'clock, but we said we would do, so Joan said, are you starting at 1 or is this it? We're starting at 1 with the class. A few people had questions, so we're trying to answer the questions. And I keep hitting the wrong thing here, so let's do it one more time. Page 2. Macaw. Buy now. All right, so sorry. Okay, that was right. It's just that the pictures at the top have the supply totes that we have for the Macaw class, and I forgot to scroll down on this. Okay, so if I scroll down now, you can see there's lots of borders. So what you need is to find first the, oh, here we go. The Stella Maris 3-round C border queen 99-inch square mixer introduction. So that's the first thing you need. So you need that item, and then you need the, I must have a, hold on, let me fix a, because you guys can't see the whole page here. There we go. That should work a little bit better. So you need that introduction booklet if you've bought the wall and you want to expand to queen. That has all of your final assembly instructions in it with your pressing graphic, your which order you sew all the pieces together in. If you bought that in a different pattern, then you can, then you may not need this. So if you've constructed a quilt with this identical layout before, you can maybe skip this item, but if you're new to this, I would suggest getting that because It makes it much easier to avoid complicated assembly steps if you don't from not sewing your blocks together in the right order. So I would get the introduction booklet, and then you're also going to need a C border. So the one that we are going to teach you guys is called the star point border. So you'll scroll down to the star point border. You can choose other borders if you want. It doesn't matter. It's just if you want the one that we're going to teach in the workshop on December 8th, then the star point border is the one you want. And then you need to have a D border. So for the D borders, the one we did, let's find it here, is called Flying Geese Queen. Oh, right here, Flying Geese Queen. And again, you can do the one, if you want to do the one that we're going to do in class on December 15th, then get the Flying Geese Queen border. You can choose one of the others, that's fine, and still follow along in class. It's just not going to be for the same pattern. The same general paper piecing processes and everything are there. It's just going to be different than what you guys are, than what you're watching Judy make. So, okay, so hopefully that helps to answer that question. Let's see. Is there anything else that someone's interested in as far as questions go? I assume if no one had any questions on their pattern that you guys all must have, you know, finished all your homework. Everyone's ready for this next set. Someone asked Mom, Judy recommended cotton thread. Would Superior's So Fine be acceptable even though it's poly?
If they want to use it. I mean, I normally don't sew with it, but it's not going to hurt your quilt. Polyester is stronger than cotton. That's why they told us not to use it, because the seams, the thread lasts longer than the fabric.
When you say they, you mean the rhetorical they?
Well, clarifying it from all of those women that used to, you could call them the quilt police, I suppose, or the women that used to sew 100 years ago, or 50 years ago. But if you have a quilt that's worn out, normally you're going to find that it's the fabric that wears out, not the thread. And that's because they normally used polyester thread. Cotton thread will wear out faster and it breaks easier than polyester. But I used to do hand quilting all the time, and I always use polyester thread to do my hand quilting. So I don't think it's going to hurt anything. That's my feelings. So.
All right, so there you go. Linda said, I guess I'm late. So no, nobody is late. We started a little bit early just because some people had some questions, and so we're trying to answer those in advance, and then class officially starts at 1 p.m. So don't worry, you're not late. I had someone also send a question that was unrelated to the pattern itself, but just about Quiltworx in general. Someone had asked exactly where we're located. So hold on, before I finish that, Debbie Campbell said, will Judy please briefly go back over the L group diamonds? Today's entire workshop is about the L group diamonds. So yeah, she'll go over the information that we presented, and then we'll do
we're gonna go over some B stuff. We're gonna go do all of the L, and then we're gonna introduce the C group today.
Right. Someone also noted that the sound is breaking up a bit. I also noticed that every once in a while I'm getting a signal that says that there's a slight pause. So hopefully today's will be as successful as far as live video as we had in the had last week. If we run into a ton of technical difficulties, we could always try and disconnect and reconnect, but I hate doing that on a live event because sometimes it gets hard for everybody to find us again. So we're going to do our best and see how we get through it all. But I'm going to go back to the question we had about where we were located, and we're in Northwest Montana. So we're actually in a little town called Summers, and it's right on a big lake called Flathead Lake. So I'm gonna actually show you guys here. We're just gonna go to Google Maps, and then I gotta switch my screen here as soon as I get this typed in. So the reason why I'm showing you this is what they were wondering was about our retreats. So Quiltworx has a retreat center at our building, and so they were wondering about coming to see us. So this, let's see, let's zoom out. So here's the big picture of Montana. If I zoom way far out here, you can see us sitting right here. And we are on this lake here called Flathead Lake. The office actually sits on this highway here where you see 82. And if you zoom in, here's Lincoln Lane, and our building is right there. I think if I turn on satellite, you probably can see it. Yeah, there we are, right there. So there's Quiltworx. So this larger building is our warehouse, and then we have a smaller building over here that is a retreat center, and there is 5 beds.
No, there's 10 beds.
Oh, sorry, there's 10 beds, 5 rooms. And let's see.
5 bathrooms, or 6 bathrooms.
6 bathrooms. 5 rooms, 10 beds, a kitchen, and a teaching room. So if you go to our website under Quiltworx events, you can click on Quiltworx Training Center, and you can see pictures. There's a few pictures there of the retreat center, and there's a list of our events. So next year we do have a few openings left in some public retreats. So you want this 2022 public retreats. We have February, March, and then May with openings still. So if it says full, then there's no spaces left. So anyways, that's where you can go to find more information on the retreats. And like I said, this picture here shows the training studio. We've actually put carpet in it since the first year we did it because the floors were really slippery. So we wanted something that wasn't quite as slippery. Oops, sorry. So I was gonna see, oh, I know a place. We could go to a newsletter.
Should I go over the corrections with them on those page numbers?
Oh, yeah, we can do that too. So Debbie Sullivan says, I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for presenting this workshop. The Macaw wall hanging is my introduction, so I can make the Queen Vintage Rose next year. And then someone else says that information is all on the website, and she is correct. Mary asks that I highly recommend Judy's retreats. Gone twice, going again in June. Well, we can't wait to see you again in June, Marie. So let's see. Another thing is we do have some corrections that Mom found. So I'm going to go over those really quick before we get started here. So products, patterns. The corrections for the Queen are posted here, and we posted one that that a student brought to our attention last week. Actually, during the class, I think she asked this question. This said previously just fabric or TLS number 2, and then for fabric K4 it said TLS number 3. It should actually say TLS number 2 and 3 in step 6 and TLS number 4 on step 7. You can find these all on the website. So if I go through these too fast, then go to the website, click on either the queen or the wall, whichever size you're making, and check out the corrections there. This correction happens to apply to both of them, so I made it in both patterns. Let's see, let's go back. And the other pattern, or the other correction, was brought to me by a CI who's working on the pattern. And this was for page 7. And again, this applies to both the queen and the wall. The NP 756 and NP 755 were switched. So I just changed the order on those on the correction. So you can find, or so anyway, a lot of you probably didn't even notice that, but it technically was incorrect. So I switched those. And then we're going to go to the wall pattern because there was a couple more that applied only to the wall. Something else I'm going to mention about our retreats, because this question comes up all the time. If you come to Montana to come to one of our retreats, you can work on any pattern you want. So you just get to bring something. A lot of people bring 2 or 3 projects. Whereas if you come to like a Quiltworx University, you need to work on the projects that we do for the Quiltworx University. If you come to one of our other classes that are like, every once in a while we have other classes at different locations. Again, those need to be done with the patterns that are specific to the class. So if you come to Montana, those are small groups, and 10 people, up to 12, because we do allow a couple off-site people. But you can
set up private retreats.
Do that. Yep, you can work on whatever you want. And the other thing is we do, Mom's right, we do private retreats. So if you and 10 of your best friends or 5 of your best friends want to get together and come to Montana and sew, whether you want Judy to teach or not, we can do a wide range of options. We can do no food. We can help you with food. We can talk to you about all the things that you want to do. So that's actually something that not a lot of people know about our event center, is that when it's not booked for our retreats, then you guys can choose your own. So Roberta says she's having problems with the audio coming and going frequently. I'm not sure if that's my microphone. I don't think it's the microphone though. I think it's part of the connection. So please let me know if we have tons of problems like that, then we might need to start the broadcast over, but I hope not. Okay, so I came to the Macaw wall. So a couple more corrections that were posted today. We talked about the page 4 correction already. On page 7, we also changed in the wall, we changed the group J bag. And then on page 14, we noticed a page number reference. This should say at the bottom of page 15. I think it said at the bottom of page 2. And then on page 17, the same thing, there was a page reference. I think it said page 3. It should have said page 16. So those are all fairly small corrections. I'm going to go back to the page because there is another correction on page 15 that was posted a while ago, so hopefully you guys saw this already. But there was some mislabeling in the template layout sheet names on each of these, in steps 2 on each of these sections. And then also fabric L10, if you use Quiltster, it told you to cut a 20-inch strip. The patterns used to say 5 inches, cut into 2.5 inch strips. We changed that to match what Quiltster actually says. So all of this information is already updated on the website. I went there to get it. And you can so you can go download it now. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. So some people said that their Facebook is having some audio issues, but you might want to switch to YouTube because there's no problems there. Other people on Facebook said that they haven't had any problems. So some things to think about. If your audio's struggling a little bit, maybe switch over to YouTube and it might stream a little bit better for you. Okay, so those are just some corrections that are specific to the pattern sections that we're going to be working on today. And I think I answered all of the questions that anybody had. Someone said, why is the video already going? Mine shows that you were supposed to start at 2 Central. Hi, Annette. Last week we talked to, we let everybody know that we would come on just a half hour early to answer some questions, make sure everybody was set up with sound and different things, but the official class does start right at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. So that's what we're doing. We're just talking, we're answering some questions, different things like that. So don't worry, nobody missed anything. We're just trying to give some extra time to those that needed some extra help or anything. So no worries. So I think that covers that. We went over corrections. We went over the questions that everybody had. I said hello to as many people as I could. And I think we're about ready, Mom. It's 12:59, so you have about a minute here to get started. Maybe I'll shut my phone off. Let's see. How did everybody do on their projects this week? You can let me know while we're waiting for Mom to get her last little pieces ready here. Hi from New York. Hi from Northern Ireland. Germany. Video very blurry. Hi, Margie. Well, on the video side, hopefully that will clear itself up. I noticed last week that there was a couple sections where it did blur down just a little bit, but it did get better, so hopefully it clears up from you. We got Eastern Canada. Someone noted I had to change the quality to auto 1080p and the video clarity cleared up. Someone said the J block is going very well for me here. Hello from Sacramento, California. Another West Texas, Iowa. Hi, Chris Conley. I'm saying hi to Chris. She came to a couple of our Quiltworx universities over the last year, actually, from Williamsburg and in Tucson. So that's a name I recognize there. Stillwater, New York, Muscatine, Iowa. A couple Iowas. Manitoba, Canada. For those of you who are new to this, also new to Quiltworx in general, I'm going to switch back over to the website here for just a second. We have certified instructors and certified shops, and we have them in the US, we have them in Canada, Australia, and Europe, and
New Zealand.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have them actually in all sorts of locations around the United States, or around the world. Sorry. Canada, Australia, Europe. The Australia also includes New Zealand and Singapore, and certified shops in the United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe. If you click on one of these, I'm just going to click on the certified instructors in the US. Jane says she's just about to have all of her homework done, so she's been working hard on her project. Awesome. So on this page, you can go to a map and you can see locations. You can actually zoom in to where you're at, and you can click on these little pins and it'll pop up the names of our certified instructors in your areas. And it'll also pop up, it'll do the same thing on the shops. And then there's a list of all of the certified instructors that we work with and where they're located. If you click on each of these, you'll get more information about each of them. And it'll show you sometimes either where they're teaching, so you might see some classes, or it'll tell you how to find their teaching calendar. So if you're new to Quiltworx and you're thinking about signing up for a class, this is a great place to start to find someone who might be teaching in your area. The same thing with the shops. I'm going to click over to the certified shops here. And you can see a map. You can zoom in and then click a shop.
Where's my missing page?
Mom's talking to herself here. So you can click on a shop. This one happens to be Society, Castle Rock, Colorado. But you can scroll through, and these shops regularly hold classes. They sell kits. So it's a great place to see who all works with us. So someone asked, is it best to comment on Facebook or YouTube, or do you see comments on both? So I'm seeing them on Facebook right now, but we do have someone who's also watching on YouTube, and we have another person monitoring on Facebook as well. So I have people looking at both locations who can answer your questions. I won't always have a chance to answer a question once we get started with the video here, because I'll be paying attention and trying to make sure I'm on the right video screen. So just some things to think about. I'll do my best to see if there's anything that anyone needs answered as we go along here, but if we don't get to it, we'll give you some sort of an answer in the comments later. So
I'm ready.
Okay, Mom says she's ready. So I'm going to transfer over to her. Okay, you're on.
Hi, everybody. Well, if you guys had as busy a week as I did getting prepared for this, then you did pretty good. There was a lot of work to get everything put together. We went back and we kind of sewed all of the components together. So if you went to the instructions, the video that shows how to do it, then you managed to get your curved piecing. The other thing that was in that set of instructions was how to do the vein. And so anyway, this is the A group all sewn together. And then that's a J group. And then on the K group, you actually have two pieces. As well, you had two veins that you were working with. And in the instructions for the K group, as far as how to do it, it told you how to do those veins. Here at Quiltworx, we have been designing a lot of patterns using the veins. The biggest reason is we like them. They're very pretty. They really add a lot of texture to your quilt. And so pay attention to all of the videos that have different information on how to do those veins. Over the years, if you have some of our older patterns, you'll probably notice that some of the older patterns, the technique on how we assembled them was a little bit different than the newer techniques. And you're working with pretty much the newest techniques that we have, so with these patterns. So the other thing that you guys were supposed to do is to complete all of the strip piecing for the B groups. One thing I want to bring to your attention is notice how I still have the paper on my template pieces. The reason why is because this piece and this are a mirror image, all right? But the paper on your T templates is the right side of the fabric, where the paper on your foundation paper units is the wrong side of the fabric. So you have to you can't pull this off and then try to figure out which one they go to, because you may get them on the wrong side. Now, in this particular pattern, it's not going to make a lot of difference because they'll fit in both directions. Even the TRP lines fit in both directions. But let's say you had a pattern that didn't fit that together that way, then you're going to have issues if you get those mixed up. So always remember that the paper is the top side of the fabric, all right? And you can see the other thing you want to pay attention to is when you're putting the little pieces on here, this is a BL unit, and then you're also going to use the BL unit on this one. And that's not a unit, that's a T template. This is a BR template, and then a BR template here. So don't get hung up on this is the left side and this is the right side, because it doesn't always work out that way. It really, the only thing that really determines a left and a right is how Bradley has it turned on his in the CAD program when he's actually building the units. So sometimes you're going to end up with left side units into the right side part of the quilt. And so don't ever let the left and the rights confuse you. Just follow what we have in the instructions. The layout for those is on the bottom of page 23 in your instructions, and it tells you which units are going to be paired up. So when you're sewing this border together, follow those instructions, and don't sew anything else that does not show you to sew together. On page 24, it shows you what parts are sewn. I want to bring your attention to T template B2L and B2R, which are these pieces right here. And I'm going to put it on the table. Can you see that? Can they see that, Jadel? Yeah. So these templates right here, I do it myself. I know you guys are going to try to do it as well, but pretty much every time I sit down and make one of these quilts, I try to sew this piece on to this unit up here. And it doesn't go onto that unit, but it looks like it's supposed to fit on there. It actually is part of this series group right here. So if you sew that on, you're going to run into problems later on when you start to assemble. So I just want to warn you, don't sew that piece on. And then the other thing I want to bring to your attention, we're going to put this back. Remember I told you that there's some assembly graphics. It's LP53, and it's in your pattern. Okay, you guys aren't going to be able to really see this, but you have it in your instructions. And Mom, what it does is it goes through.
Mom, if you lay that down on your...
Can you see it if I lay it down?
Then you can see it, yeah. There you go.
Okay. All right, so Assembly Graphic 1 is an exploded view of all of the elements. So at this point, all of these pieces have been sewn together. So we have our pieces here sewn, those are sewn together. These should already be assembled. And so when you look at this, it's already a group of templates that's already been assembled. So this is a B1R, then we have the curve with it, and the melon in the center. And that's going to be one of your corner pieces. And then you go to Assembly Graphic 2, and you just need to study the pictures. We don't have a lot of letters on here telling you what groups they are, because at this point, depending on which pattern you're working with, this is a generic piece, and so I can't tell you exactly what units are going to be in each one of these slots. You're going to have to figure that out according to the pattern that you're actually doing. But then it starts telling you what the next piece is that sews onto it. So follow all of that. And I like to stack. I have everything stacked 4 deep on the wall. So when I find what I'm supposed to join, which would be this piece onto here, then I'm going to do all 4 of those. And that way I don't end up with a situation where I get them in the wrong place. Now you guys are working with rainbow, so you may want to lay the whole quilt out and then grab the pieces as you go, but always work yourself through and follow the instructions. The other thing I want to tell you is there's pressing arrows on this. And our pressing arrows are set up basically to go either counterclockwise or clockwise. Now that doesn't always match whether you have light fabric or dark fabric that you're pressing into. So you may have a tendency to think, well, I don't want to press it this way, I want to press it a different way. And if you choose to do that, what I do is just take a red pens and I'll just mark the ones that I might want to change the pressing on with an X. And then as I go through, I can make that same pressing change through all of the pieces. All right. And you just continue to follow that, and it's going to tell you exactly how to assemble until you get to the very last piece. And it's also going to tell you what your pressing is. All right. So we're going to take this and pin this back up on the wall here. All right. So I also want to go through, because I told you last week that I would go through the cutting on the tea templates, because just to show you how this is done. So basically, I have the tea templates here, and I laid these out on my instructions exactly, laid them out on my fabrics exactly the way it showed me to do it in the instructions, right? Notice that I did not cut any of the templates apart, except for these 2, because it told me to cut those out. Those were not inside where that big dash line is. One benefit by doing this is it's a lot easier to arrange them. You don't have to worry about trying to get them all positioned on grain line. And we have them set up so when you lay this on, you're going to have the grain line going the direction that you need it to go, right? So after I get these on, and I usually put a little bit of repositionable glue on the back of the paper so it doesn't slip as much. So we're going to take these pieces, and I'm going to show you basically how I go about doing this. The other thing I want to note is I have a TRP line here, 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 and here. Actually, I have 2 of them right here and 1 there as well. I like to sew those through all 4 layers of fabric, okay? And it keeps the paper from slipping. And when I get ready to assemble these, I'll pull the thread out of the pieces, and then I'll mark those with a piece of some chalk or something so I can see where those marks are. And I do that right before I'm ready to assemble. So until you're ready to assemble, you're going to have those TRP lines sewn through all 4 layers. If you're working with a batik, once you pull those layers of thread through, you're going to notice the little holes that it leaves there for you. So you may not even have to mark it. But if you're working with a cotton fabric, you're not going to see those little holes because the cotton fabrics are too loosely woven for that.
Okay, hold on just a second, Mom. One of the ladies asked what page this cutting information is on, and it's on page 22. So
Yeah.
you can see it on the right hand side here.
It's in the first column.
Yeah, there you go. So you can see that in the first column there. And I'm going to switch back to the other view.
Okay. So now I also put paper clips around the edges to keep this from moving as well. So now we're going to take a ruler, and I'm going to look pretty close at what I have, and I'm going to try to clean off around the outside first. And so we're just going to cut, because I like to try to get the outside stuff cut before I start with the cutting in between. All right, so I've got that one cut, and then we're going to take this piece, and I'm going to move these paper clips, and I'm going to put that on my cut line. And my cut line is the solid line, all right? It's the outside perimeter. So you have two solid lines around your quilt, or around each one of your T-templates, and it's the one on the outside that is your cut line. The other one is your sew line. So now I have that, and then I'm going to slip my paper clips back on there. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to cut this edge right here. We'll pull these off. Okay, I have a little smart corner there, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that.
Maybe you should explain smart corners for those who don't know what they are.
Okay, a smart corner is when you put two pieces right sides together and you get ready to sew. If you don't have smart corners, what you end up with is dog ears and little pieces that stick out, and then you have to find where your 1/4 inch. What a smart corner does is it actually trims off all of those little dog ears prior to matching everything. And the benefit of it is it shows you exactly where you have to match up to start sewing, and you don't end up getting those dog ears too big, sliding them back and forth. You actually match everything right around. And so sometimes you'll have a smart corner that's like 3 different corners. Well, the piece underneath it will have that too. And in general, we do really well with all of the smart corners. On occasion, we do have some smart corners that Bradley matches up to the wrong pieces, and I will go over that later on. Okay, so I'm going to continue cutting. All right, and I have another straight line on this one. Okay, so now my 2 pieces are apart. I'm going to go ahead and cut this smart corner up here. And now I'm going to grab my curved ruler. I'm going to cut this straight one right here as well. And I have 2 smart corners, one on both ends. And I like to cut these in the process of cutting because I cut them before anything has a tendency to slip. If you try to cut them after you've pulled the pieces apart, you're never going to get them cut exactly the way they should be cut. All right, so here's a curved ruler. And now I'm going to use my curved ruler. I'm going to go ahead and cut this little tiny line there. And I'm going to place this down. And what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting that curve as I'm cutting, but it does protect it. So now we have our first piece cut here. Actually, we have 2 pieces cut. And then we'll finish on this one. And the only piece I have left here, I have just along the curve. And so these rulers just kind of, all you have to do is just readjust them as you go around that curve. And now all of our pieces are cut. Don't take the templates, the paper templates off until you're actually ready to assemble if you're using batiks. So we're just gonna set these aside and we're done with that, okay? All right, so I think all you guys have to do is just follow those instructions and it's going to walk you through how to assemble. But before you can do any assembling, we have to do these pieces. So we're going to go back and we're going to start on page 14. So the first thing it has you do is you had to get all of your foundation papers up. And remember, I showed you guys, I gotta grab my bag so I can show you again. Last week we went over how to set all of the swatches on top of these. Okay, and so the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you, once you get the swatches done, you're going to come in here and you're going to cut on those lines. So we just go through and do all the cut lines. And it doesn't have to be perfect. What we're trying to do is get those together. Now, don't cut this apart yet. I want you to get all of the cut lines done first.
I have someone who says she's confused about the TRP lines on T templates.
On the T templates?
Yeah, so maybe we should, before we go any farther, we should just explain that one more time.
Okay.
And
I'll pull one of them down.
Okay. We're going to jump back to that just to make sure everyone's clear on how T templates, why we need them and what they do.
Okay, so are you on my table?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a TRP line. I'm going to mark it in red. I have a TRP line here and a TRP line here. Okay, so the TRP line right here is going to match up to the TRP line on this little curve, the strip piecing that we did. And I had TRP lines for this template as well, and what it does is it centers everything. So a TRP line is put onto the papers because that's a point in which you're going to match between two units. All right, and the reality of the TRP lines is the more you use them, the more addicted you are to them, because you know that it's going to tell you exactly how things fit together. All right, some people don't sew them. I really recommend that you sew your TRP lines if it's the first quilt you've ever done. Once you understand how to use and work with the TRP lines, most of my students don't really sew them onto the T templates. I actually do sew the 4 pieces together with a TRP line, and then right before I'm ready to assemble my pieces, then I'll pull those out and then I'll do the assembly. But I can see where the TRP line was sewn on here because it leaves holes in your batik. Once you hit that with your starch pen, all of those holes go away. So you don't want to starch over those until you know that you've got everything ready. But that's what it is. A TRP line is a registration line. If you are doing the Queen, this TRP line on the outside of the border piece is actually going to match up to the C groups. And when you get your C borders done, all of these TRP lines are going to match up, so you know exactly where to pin the C borders onto your square, the inner quilt, once this square is put together. Does that help you?
All right. Let's switch back to our paper here.
All right, so I have all of my papers cut. I did some pre-cutting on some of the papers. And I just want to show you guys a trick. And we're going to set this up. I have a light table here. And on all of these pieces, you'll have something where it'll say Star Group 7. And I actually wrote the bag numbers down onto the paper because the bag numbers are in your instructions. So I'm going to put that's for bag 1. This one is a Star Group 8. That goes into bag 2. This one is a Star Group 6. That goes into bag 2. So I'm going to lay this one down here. This one goes into bag L1. That's Star Group 5. This is Star Group 3. That's the L1 bag. This one is the L2 bag, and that's Star Group 2. This one is Star Group 1. Notice where I'm pointing to on that paper. And that goes into bag L1. And this one is Star Group 4, and it goes into bag L2. So all of these pieces are going to go into my L2 bag. Now, I'm going to organize these pieces so that I have Star Group 2, and then Star Group 4, 6, and 8 in that order. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to cut all of these papers out at one time. Now, if you don't have a light table, then you're going to have to cut them out one at a time. And after you cut each one out, then you're going to pin those together. All right. I like doing it this way because I can actually get them set up in the same order in which all of our cutting instructions are put together. Right. So I'm going to go over here and we're going to set this group aside because we don't need to do this one. And I'll show you here. So we're going to go to the light table. And I have a light table here. And if I get the light up as far as as bright as it is, I can see through this. And this is my L7. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue outside my foundation units. And it doesn't matter which glue, but don't get it on the foundation unit. Now I'm going to take group 5 and I'm going to match it up, and I can see exactly where to match everything on and I matched all the lines. And then I'm going to push the papers together where that glue is, around the outside, okay? Now I'm going to take the 3 group, and we're going to do the same thing. And I can usually get about 4 sheets before I can no longer see where to match them up with this little light table. And I'll put the information on there, if she hasn't already, about the light table, so that if you guys want to purchase them, you can. And if you want to purchase them through us, we do sell them. But if you buy them from us, then we will have them drop shipped directly from the company. And right now, I do believe that there's about, it takes a little while. I think they're on back order right now, but if you guys are wanting them, call Cindy and she can figure that out for you. She knows what's going on there. Okay, so now, like I said, after number 4, you're pretty much, it's hard to see the last one, but I can get it enough to where I can see how to position it. All right, I'm just going to double check this one, and we're right on. Okay, so now I have all of my pieces together, and what I'm going to do is instead of cutting around the outside, I'm going to cut between them, because if I keep the outside together, then they're not going to move on me. So I'm going to come in here, we're going to place our ruler right between these 2 lines, and we're going to cut. And then we're going to place it between the other ones. And so the papers that I'm cutting, these are all my left side papers, okay? I'm not cutting the right side papers or the other group, so make sure you don't get your left and right papers mixed up. All right, so now I'm going to take a paper clip. I'm just going to slip a paper clip on each one of these. Okay, and we'll just flip this around and we'll put a paper clip on this one right here. Okay, so now that I have those clipped together.
Mom, someone was asking what size the light table is.
They come in 2 sizes. The one you're looking at here is the smaller one, and I believe it's about 18 inches. So we have one that's this size, and then we have one that's a larger size. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut about 1/8 of an inch outside my cut lines, because I'm doing my foundation papers. When you're cutting your T-templates, you cut right on the line. When you're cutting out your foundation papers, you cut outside the line about 1/8 of an inch. All right, so we're going to get rid of those. And we're going to swing them around. And I'm going to catch that little piece. And then my last long cut. Okay. So now all I have to do is just come down here and clean off right along the ends. So now I have all my pieces already clipped together. And not only are they clipped together, they're actually in the sewing order in which we cut all of our fabrics, prepared the fabrics. Whoops, dropped my glue stick. So we're going to get rid of this paper. We're going to set those aside. And now we're going to bring our fabrics over. So last week I went over going through and putting all of your colors onto your fabric chart, and then I also told you to go through and put a swatch of the colors that go with the different cutting instructions, right? And I actually have a bag 1 and bag 2. So these pieces go into my bag 2. So I'm just gonna, we're not gonna go over both bag 2 bags. So this is my bag 1, and these are gonna go in here. So now I prepared all of my stacks so you guys didn't have to watch me unfold everything. But we're going to start with the first paragraph for fabric L1, and it's on page 15. All right, and I cut all the template layout sheets. We showed you how to do that last week. And then what it does is I have my 4 colors. So I should have fabric L1, L3, L5, and L7, which is my yellow, my red, my purple, and my teal. And I have my strips here, and if you look, this should match what I see in my pattern. I actually moved this down to this end as close as I could get it, and I moved this one down to this end as close as I could get it. That leaves me enough excess through the center that if I accidentally make a cutting mistake somewhere along the line, I can still get some diamonds out of this section here, right? So we have the 4 fabrics underneath it, and this is actually template layout sheet number 3, which it tells you on your first picture there that you're supposed to have template layout sheet number 3. So we're going to take and we're going to cut along there, and then we're going to make that cut. And I'm going to put a paper clip on these. I like to clip them together so they are in the correct order. Okay. And those can go in the garbage. So I have the 2 pieces that it told me there's actually 4 fabrics under each one of these. This one is template layout sheet number 2, and this one is template layout sheet number 3. And if we read the instructions down to the bottom, it says place the left pieces in bag L1. So I'm going to look on this. These are the right pieces because it has an R, and this one is a L4L. So this piece goes in bag L1. And this one goes into bag L2. All right. Now we're going to go to the next one, and we're working with fabric L2, L4, L6, and L8. Okay. And we did the same thing where we matched it up and set it up the way the picture shows you. And then we're going to cut off at the ends. And this piece tells me to put it in, well, let's just cut this and then we'll read down further. The other thing I want you guys to notice is, even though it's telling me to do the additional cutting, right now I'm not doing that additional cutting. I usually will do that right before I get ready to start doing my paper piecing. So now it's telling me the L1 pieces, which is, these are my L1s, the small pieces. It's template layout sheet number 4, goes into bag L1. My left, and it tells me my right pieces go into bag L2. All right, so the next pieces we have are fabric L9. And with fabric L9, you were supposed to cut, you had a 13.5-inch strip, and you were supposed to take that strip and cut it into, I believe, one 3.5-inch strip, and I'm going to count rather than read, 4 of the 2.5-inch strips. So we have 2 pieces here. Right, so the first ones, what we're doing is we're just going to take our template layout sheet and cut these pieces. And I have directional, or not directional fabric, but cotton fabric, so I have a right and a wrong side. So I have to cut each one of these separately, all right? And these pieces are actually the little pieces that go on the edges down here at the bottom. And so we're going to cut 4 of each of those. And I'm not going to cut those right now because I can do that later, but I am going to put them into the right bags. And so the left pieces go into bag L1, and this one is a left piece. And this one is my I think this one is my right piece. I have to look at them to tell. Because this is T-template L2. And what is this one? There's a lot of reading on this little piece. So this one is T-template L1 and L2. So I'm not sure if it actually tells you that which one's right and left. So let's read.
LS number 7, template sheet number 7 goes on the right.
Yeah, so it says place 4 each TL template layout sheet L1 and L2 in each bag. So it doesn't really matter. I don't know that it matters. So I'm just going to put it on one bag. I know it matters once you start cutting them apart.
Someone asked what size the ruler that you're cutting with is. The yellow one is an 1/4 ruler.
It's a 12-inch 1/4.
There you go.
And then this one is an 18-inch Creative Grids ruler. All right. So those pieces, don't worry too much about them because they'll take care of themselves once you get to assembly and they're the last piece that's sewn on. So just set them aside for now. Now on this one it tells me I actually have 2 stacks, okay? So you put 2 of them in each stack, and then you're going to put 1 template on each one of those stacks. And then you're going to cut at the end here. And now you're going to move this over. And you're going to stack it. So you should have 4 pieces under each one. Now if you're working with some batiks, you'll actually be able to stack all 4 of them and put 1 on each end. But on some of the cotton fabrics, it doesn't quite fit. So you'll have to just measure it. But anyway, you have to cut 4 pieces. And after I get them cut, then I'm going to clip them all together. And these are my R groups, and so it says that the R groups go in my R bag, which is the number 2 bag. I'll take this, lay it on here like this. And these go in my number 1 bag. Now when you get to your fabric L10, which is your black, you only have to cut 1 piece from each strip. So you have quite a bit left over. But we couldn't get 2 strips off of one of these. So there's actually 4 layers under each one. And this one is template layout sheet number 5 that I'm cutting. And it's for the right group. So we're going to slip that inside with the right, and then this one's going to go into the left bag with all the left side pieces. Okay, so now we have our 2 bags ready, and so I'm going to go through and show you the paper piecing process and how to sort all of your diamonds. So I'm going to work slowly through this so that you can understand what we're doing, and I'm just going to do the left bag. Judy, what time are we getting?
It's 1:49.
Okay, we're doing good for time. And I'm not going to work with the right bag today, you guys. So remember, I didn't cut all of these apart, and the reason why is because if I was going to put this away for a year or 6 months, then it keeps me from having a million pieces in there that I have to try to figure out what they are. And all of these are still in the order in which I cut. And then we have our 4 papers here. So what I'm going to do is, if you look at my papers, I have them pinned together. And the very first paper, I have yellow and orange on it. And then on the one underneath it, I have the red and the pink. I have the purple and the blue, and the teal and the green. Okay. And this one, if we look at those, that's yellow and red. Or so basically what it is this pile is going to be the first section that I put on, and this pile is going to be the second section that I put on onto all my pieces. So we're going to set this one up here, and I'm still not going to cut these. And we're going to move our book. Because at this point, I really don't need to read the instructions because I've already set up all of my template pieces and I can see which colors go with it. So we're just going to start going through, and let's go ahead, and I'm going to put them kind of like this. And the first thing I'm going to cut are my white pieces. So let's use my add a quarter ruler because it lays nicely over the paper clips. Okay, so I have 3 stacks here for my white. So let's look at this. I need a white set here. I need a white set with this one, and I need a white one with this one. Okay, now we're going to cut our black stack apart. Cut line 1, cut line 2, and cut line 3. So on this one, I have to have a black one here. I need a black one with this, and I'm lining my sew sides up together. I need a black one there, and I need a black one with this. Now we're going to go to this pile, And this one shows I have my orange, my pink, my blue, and my green. And if I actually look at this, I have orange, pink, blue, and green. Okay. And then this one, that one goes here because that's my orange spot. Okay, so this is a yellow. So the yellow is going to go here. The yellow is here. And the yellow is here. So when you go back, all the way back to where you were cutting the strips, that's one of the reasons you want to make sure your strips are stacked in the order that it tells you to stack them in your instructions, because now they're all ready for paper piecing and you don't have to go through and individually figure out which goes onto each paper. All right, so we're going to start right here, and the next thing I want to do is I want to look at my paper, and it says section 2 is my black, so I'm going to put my sew side right here, and section 1 is the white, and I'm going to set it on top like that. And then I'm just going to clip those together and set them aside. On this piece, it says section 2 are the colored, the rainbow fabrics, and section 1 is the black fabric. So we're going to put those, and we're going to clip those together. And let's take these. And section 1 is the white. So we're going to start here. Section 4 starts with my orange fabric. So I'm going to turn that so my sew side's right there. And then my yellow, it goes on top like this. And then my black. And these are my sew sides. And then number 1 goes right here.
I have a question from YouTube Mom. Why does Judy use paper clips rather than straight pins?
Because I don't like to poke my fingers.
Okay, well, that's a simple answer.
Yep. And when you have 20 of these, it's really hard to get a pen in there. If you have paper clips, it just goes right over the group.
Sometimes, in fact, we use binder clips if there's
yes,
a lot of layers and a lot of things to keep together. We'll use either a small or a medium binder clip.
Yeah, so like this is a pretty thick one, but my paper clip will still work. It'll still hold, so there's like several layers. But if it was too thick, you can actually, I don't think I have any, I have little binder clips. And you can take the binder clips as well. And you can clip that whole group together as well, just like that, and use the binder clip on it. Okay?
Paper clips are actually probably cheaper too, aren't they, than straight pins?
Yeah, probably.
We just use office paper clips, and we have giant cans of them all over the office at this point.
Yeah.
We just have them everywhere.
When you're buying paper clips, go out to some of your office supply companies online, and then buy instead of buying one box, buy the ones that have like 10 or 12 boxes in, and you'll end up with a couple thousand paper clips. And actually, I think you end up with 1,000 because each box has 100. And you think, well, I'll never use those, but you will. If you start working with our patterns, you'll use them. And they just work really good, nice that way. The other thing I like about the paper clips rather than the big plastic clips, and sometimes people use clothesline clips and all, there's lots of different fun things to use. But the paper clips you can stack. And when you have all of those binder clips and the big things, big bulky things, you can't get all your papers to stack properly before you start paper piecing. So the stacking for this works really well. A pen will stack. The problem is like I said, I don't like to poke myself, and I'm always doing that. And then your pins, you're always going to bend your pins once you try to go through, well, what are there, 20 layers of fabric here. So you're not going to get a pin to go through that.
I just got a note from Cindy, who is our sales manager. She says, we want to remind you to get the smooth jumbo ones.
Yes.
As opposed to smaller ones or the rigid ones, or anyway, the smooth jumbo work the best.
See, I told you Cindy would take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on our very last one here. And so my section 4's here. This is section 1. Okay, so on this one, section 4 is my white fabric, which is right here. And then my section 3 is the orange fabric on top. So there's the orange, and the other 3 colors are underneath it. And there's my sew side. And then we have the yellow fabric on top, right there. And then we have the black. All right. So we're going to set that aside, and we're going to go through how to actually assemble these now. And I'm going to do one small bunch and one of the large bunch, okay? And we don't have to sew all of them together. I have all of these that I can show you how to do the assembly process on them. So we're going to start with the little one. And so the very first piece when you do paper piecing always has to be flipped wrong side up. So I'm working with fabrics with the right and wrong side, so it's easy to tell whether or not I'm putting it on backwards. I know it's so commonly said that if I work with batiks, it doesn't matter whether it's a right or a wrong side, so it's just easier to work with. However, that's not true, because when you're working with batiks, if you're cutting pieces that are for the left side versus the right side, and you try to put the right side underneath the left side, they don't fit. And so keep your papers with them, get the templates on top of them, until you know exactly whether or not you're working with the right piece. So
the other thing is our papers are now designed with smart corners and TRP lines, so if you don't have the right side of your batik and you accidentally get those mixed up, your TRP lines and your smart corners will be in the wrong place, and it can make it harder to assemble.
Yes. Okay, so my very first piece, I have to flip it wrong side up. Now, this paper says you have a sew side, but the reality of it is you really don't have a sew side on your very first piece. And so this piece goes like that. So it's going to fit underneath there just like that. So where it says sew side on this, it's actually going to fall right under line 1. Okay? I normally don't have a sew side on the first piece, but on all of these papers, Bradley left the sew sides on them for the first piece, because we didn't know whether or not you were going to be using it for the first piece or the last piece. So, okay. So it's going to fit under there just like that. Notice if I try to put it on this way, it's not going to fit. It has to be under like that. Okay. So we're going to take the very first piece. We're going to flip it here. I'm going to grab my repositionable glue, and I'm going to run just a little bit of it on the back and position it. Make sure not to get that repositionable glue under section 2, only under section 1, because if you get it under section 2, that paper gets folded back and it runs right along the base of your pressure foot, and it'll just stop sewing. So if you have issues with the repositionable glue, it's because you haven't used it enough to know where not to put it. So we're going to go over that again. I'm going to stack this one right on top because I know exactly where to put it. And then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put my repositionable glue under section 1. And then I'm going to lay it right on top like that. And then we're going to take the next piece, stack it on top, repositionable glue under section 1. And then we're going to take the last piece, put it there. So we're making 4 of each one of these. Goes on there just like that. Now we're done with the glue, and we're done with that piece of paper. And we're going to find our fold template. And I'm going to place the fold template. I'm going to start with the numbers, one that says number 7. And I'm going to fold back the paper, and we're going to put the outer quarter ruler on it. And we're going to trim. Then just crease that paper and leave it folded back. Don't open it up, because if you open it up, you have to go back and fold it back in order to position it. So just fold it, leave it folded back. Fold back the paper. I placed it on line 1. Let's do that again. The fold template is lined up with the solid line marked line 1. Fold back the foundation paper. Place the outer quarter ruler. Trim a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then crease that paper and stack it. And now we're on the red one. Place the fold template along line 1. Fold back the foundation paper, place the outer quarter ruler, trim. I have my 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to crease that paper and I'm going to stack it. Line 1, fold back the paper, place the outer quarter, and trim. And you'll find you'll start doing this process faster than you can talk about it in your head. Okay, so now I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to turn it so that 1/4 inch trimmed edge is away from me. All right, I don't want it be like this. I don't want it turned like this. I want it to be set so that it's away from me. All right, now when I take my foundation, my template, basically this template, if I put it right on there like that, it fits on there just like that. And that's the way that's going to be. So I'm going to look, because I'm brand new at this, I've never done it before, and I don't trust Judy very well. All right. So I'm going to look, I'm supposed to have fabric, the yellow fabric. So we're going to take this and we're going to put the yellow fabric right here, and we're going to lift that. And notice you can see yellow on this side of the paper, yellow on this side of the paper, and I've lined up right there. Now, if you have it wrong and you did it upside down, then it matches the black fabric and it won't sew on properly. So let's go through that again. My sew side is here. I'm going to match the trimmed edge with the sew side, and that's the way that's going to look. So the fabric underneath is supposed to be the same angle as the paper folded back, right? Then we're going to pick up the next piece, which is red. And I'm just going to look. It is red. And I'm going to place it. Then we're going to pick up the next piece, which is my purple. And I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to position it. And it's purple. So that's how you want to double check, because if you accidentally flip a stack or you didn't get it stacked in the right order, then you need to fix that before you go starting to do your paper piecing. And just double check. It only takes a second to flip that back and look. So now I have all 4 of my pieces. Now, for me, this is small enough that I could pick these up and go right to my machine and not have to worry about them moving, because I know how to handle it. But if you're brand new to this, take this glue pen. This is your, it's actually a little tiny tube of glue, and then it's a fabric glue pen. It looks just like this. They have all the, there's a whole bunch of different companies that have it. Mine says Fawns and Porter. Some of them say Soline. Some of them say Uline. And now there's some with a couple different designer names on them. I don't have one that says Judy Niemeyer, and I don't really need one that says Judy Niemeyer because all of the glue fits in these tubes, no matter what the company that's on the pin says, okay? So we're going to take this glue, and I'm going to come over here to the very bottom piece, and I'm going to fold back my top fabric, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue along that edge. And what I'm doing is gluing the raw edges. I like to do this after I've done all my stacking. I see a lot of people try to put it on before they stack, and one of the things that happens is they end up getting too much glue on it, and when they open it up, they're going to have glue showing past in the parts that are the finished part of it. This stops you from getting glue in the part that's going to be on the top of your quilt. All right, so it keeps the glue in the seam allowance. All right, I have all those glued together. So now when I pick this up, if I drop it and I don't know how to put it, at least I know which sides are still going to go together. All right. So we're going to come over to our sewing machine now. How is the view on the machine? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we need to adjust it a little, we can, but right now we can.
Okay.
See it.
So I'm going to place this on. I'm going to open up the paper. So I have my papers going this way. The fabric, this fabric's out like this. And I'm just going to take this and we're going to start sewing. I'm going to use about a 1.8 stitch on this because when we trim, you're going to have those trimmed. Those seams are going to cut, your threads are going to get cut right along the edge of the seam. And when we go to do our matching, sometimes those will actually back off a few stitches. So I like a tiny stitch. So we're going to sew. I'm lining the edge of my 1/4 inch foot up to the dash line, and I'm going to stitch on the solid line. If I have a machine that cuts the thread, I'll cut the thread at that point and then do the next one. I'm going to chain, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to pick up my pressure foot, lift the needle, and place it back down on my fabric. In fact, I'm going to put my needle up so it stops up. Just sew to the end of the fabric, place the next piece, slide that one back, place this one underneath the foot. Sew to the end of the fabric. Then we're going to place the next one, slide it back. All right, so we're going to cut our thread. Now we're just going to take our pieces and we're going to cut in between each one. Okay, and I'm going to stack them back in order. I'm going to put my yellow on the top and we're going to go over to the iron. Okay, are we here?
Hold
at
on.
The iron?
We gotta get to the right view, get all of our...
I can move it over if I need to.
No, you're good.
And I'm going to shut the light table off. That will help too.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good?
Yes, we're good.
All right. So I have my acorn starch pen here. And I don't know if I showed you guys, but on the bottom of it, there's a cap and it screws in like this. All right. And when you buy these, there's no starch in there. Your starch comes in a bottle, so when you buy them, you need to make sure you buy the starch as well. And then you just take this and you put this in there and you fill it up like this.
Hold that down further. The way the camera's positioned, they can't see you.
Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, just a little bit lower. There you go.
There you go. So you fill it right into the end there. After you get that full, then you just take your cap and you screw that back on there like that. I overfilled it, which that's fine. Okay. So now I'm going to take, before I try to press this open, I'm actually going to run, and don't lose the lid, so you can actually put the lid on the bottom, because once you lose the lid, it dries out, the end piece dries out. I'm going to run this pin right along the fabric, or my stitch line, on each one of my pieces. And with the cotton, it works better if you let it just soak in there for just a little bit. That's why I'm doing all of them. Okay. Now we're going to put the lid back on. We're going to start with the first one. And I can actually just take this and fold it over with my hands and basically do a finger press and open that up now. And then I'm going to press. That gives me a really crisp line. And if you're sending this quilt to a machine quilter and they want to do in the ditch, their machines will just roll right in the ditch along that. It's so crisp. There's no folds in it. And it makes it easier to match them when we start matching.
A few people are saying that the video is a little bit glitchy. At the end of this, I'm going to leave the Facebook Live video up on Facebook. And I'm going to go ahead and we're recording this also. So on our YouTube channel, I will load the recorded version and put all the information again. So you can go back and watch it if you're getting choppy spots. So last week we had no issues. This week we're having a little bit more. So it just depends on how life works for us, I guess. So we're gonna just do our best to get through it today, and hopefully we don't see much more. We seem to have a pretty calm spot there for a minute, but looks like it's getting a little choppy again. So hopefully that doesn't last long.
All right, so now I'm gonna flip them over. I have them all pressed, and I'm gonna grab my ruler and I'm going to trim. The first thing I'm going to trim is the smart corner on that end, and then you're going to trim right on the line. Not on the inside of the line, not on the outside of the line, just trim right on your line. Okay, and when I got to trim the bottom. Don't forget the bottoms. All right, so now we have it trimmed to the exact size of the paper. All right, so I'm going to just set those aside and trim them later. Now I'm going to go through this one, and we're going to do the paper piecing on this piece as well, so that you have a little bit more time to watch what we're doing. Okay, so this is my section 4, section 1 on this end, and I have them stacked properly. The white is on the bottom, which is section 4, and then I have my orange top, and then I have my yellow one, and my black. Okay. So this is where those little swatches really come in handy. If you don't put those swatches on your paper where we went over it last week, you're going to be lost at this, because you're going to have to continually go back and look at your instructions to see which colors go where. All right, so we're going to take the first stack here, and I'm going to flip them upside down, and I'm going to take my paper and make sure I have that so the sew side's right under that line 1. Okay, so that's the way it's supposed to be. And I'm going to put my glue on there. So we're going to go back to our repositionable glue. And we're going to do all 4 of these. And notice when I don't know if I mentioned it for you, those of you that might be brand new, but when I position this, you have to make sure that the fabric covers the dashed line. So when I put this on, I want to make sure that there's fabric under that dashed line there. And it looks like I need to trim my paper. It's folded back. There we go. I'm gonna look. Okay. So this foundation sheet has 2 TRP lines on it. So after we get the paper piecing done, then we'll go ahead and sew those TRP lines. So we're gonna take this, we'll grab our first piece, place our fold template on line 1, fold back the foundation paper, and trim a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Keep the paper folded back. Grab the next one. Place it on line 1. Trim. Okay, so now we're going to take our next piece and I'm going to roll it away just like this so that my sew side is away from me. Going to remove the paper clip, and then this piece comes in here and it slides on there just like that. Okay, so once I know how it slides, I move my template up out of the way, and this is my sew side, and we're going to place it. And notice how these pieces are going the opposite direction as my other ones. All right, so they're all going to switch back and forth. Yellow goes under, it's on the right color. This one is my red. I just check, and that's my red. One of the reasons you want to check those is because if you stacked them in the reverse order, you may have to change that. And that's really easy to do sometimes, especially when you go to the iron in between. And you'll probably notice that here in just a few minutes. So there's my blue. And I'm good there. Now we're going to glue those raw edges together. Just pick the fabric up along the edge where you matched it. Now we're going to go to our machine. Now if I sew this way, then I have to open the paper up and tuck it that way. If I put it like this, then my long paper is down off the machine. So I'm going to reverse the sewing on them. It doesn't make any difference, just how I position that. I'm on line 1 and I'm going to sew on line 1. So the edge of my foot on this side is going to match up to my dash line. Now we're going to grab the next one, and I'm going to just slide that one back. Okay, I'm going to press these, and I'm going to show you the next step, and then we're going to set those aside and move on to how we're actually going to do the assemble. So let me get these pressed.
Someone asked what model of Bernina that is.
It's one of the little, it's called the White Pearl. It's a collector's edition. About 10 years old. Probably 15 years old. But it's just like the little classroom machines that they have.
Also, Debbie Campbell said she got Group J and K done this week, so she is on full charge ahead.
Good. All right, so we have yellow on the top, which is the way you want that. So if you end up coming back from the ironing board with, just double check your position of your colors, okay? All right, so we're gonna fold back. We're going to do our trim line. Okay, so because I started with the yellow on the top, now when I look at this, I'm actually supposed to have my blue, so I'm going to reverse my order before I start stacking. I actually should have had it with purple on top, but okay, so now when I grab my next color here, these are my sew sides. This should, when I open it, should be yellow or orange. And we have it. And then we're going to have, this one should be a pink, which it is. This one should be my blue. And mine says green. Whoops, that's because I have it in the wrong spot. There's my blue. So don't worry if you do get them in the wrong order. That's why you want to go back there and keep checking those. And then my green goes with my teal. Okay. So I'm going to quickly glue these together. And then we're going to set them aside. But I do want to go through, I need to double check on some of these. Those are all have the the TRP lines. So for those of you that are new, here's a TRP line. So once you get that strip, I'm just going to go ahead and sew it because I can sew this one. All you have to do is just put it under your machine. And I usually do about a 2.5 on it. So I'll just run all of the papers through at the same time. And so I just sewed on it, so now you can see where that TRP line is, where I sewed on there.
It's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
In the picture, can you hold it up maybe? Oh yeah, there we can see it.
Can you see it now?
Yep, the TRP line. Yep.
Yeah, it's right here. Okay. Okay. So we're going to set these aside because you don't need to watch me do their paper piecing on them. And we're going to start going over how to assemble. So let me clean off my table. all of these back in bag 1. So if you guys have to leave in between while you're, if you can't finish the whole set, just slip it back into bag 1. That way you can pick up where you left off. All right, so we're going to, when you guys start to put all of these onto the wall, don't get too hung up about exactly, these colors, you're gonna always have the same colors on this right edge side, and this is the left side. And as far as how you position all of this, these you can move around. So if you want to jump every 2 or you want to rotate these a different color, you can. What you can't change is where these fall and where these fall, because there's specific to the left and the right. And when they're assembled, basically you're going to have these 2 pieces are sewn together and these 2 pieces are sewn together. And then these little tiny pieces that are up in here are sewn onto them. And I believe that this one goes here. So we're going to take the 2 little ones here. And I don't have to worry about which ones go with what on this piece because I'm putting them all with black. But when you guys are assembling them, when you get up to these, you have to pay attention to make sure you're getting the right pieces together. So I'm just going to lay these out so you can see these. And I only have 3 of them because the other one I already assembled over here. Okay, so I sewed those together. Now I'm going to pull this group down. And so this is where you have to pay attention to make sure that you're getting your 2 blues, your 2 purples together. And if you look at this one, so see how I have my yellow and my greens together? On this one, I have my pinks and my purples together. And on this one, I put my orange and my reds together. Okay? So I'm going to take these, and these are a set. Just move them over here on the table like that. Don't try your best to work with one group at a time and get these assembled, and then go grab another group and assemble them. Don't try to get your left and your rights and get them all laid down on your table. Just work with the left sides and then the right side units. So I've already added one of those little pieces, and that was this one. So that goes onto these, and then these will go onto these pieces. All right. So to assemble, you're actually going to leave the paper on as when you're working with them, and I'm going to clean this off just a little bit more. Okay. And I want my black down here. So now this piece is going to flip over. Now you were wondering about smart corners. So this is a smart corner, and this one has a smart corner. So when I put it on, it's going to match up there, and it's going to match at the top. If you didn't cut your smart corners, then you'll end up with a dog ear, which will stick off at the end, right?
So hold on, I'm going to zoom in on that.
Okay.
See if they can see.
So I'll put my fingers at both ends.
So everything matches perfectly.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to look in here, and I'm going to find my stitch line here, and I'm going to place a pin right where my sew line overlaps my stitch line. and then I'm going to lift it, and I'm going to come in 1/4 of an inch, and I have to match at that same intersection on the back. And that's how you get your points to match. So then I'm going to lay that pin kind of at an angle, and I'm going to pin it on both fabrics there. Okay, I like to get them all pinned that way before I start. Then after I get those pinned together and I get them matched, I'm going to remove the paper from the one that's on the bottom, because this is all bias edge along here, and if you remove the paper, the feed dogs will pull that through the way it's evenly, the way it's supposed to. We're going to leave the paper on the top one because that tells me where my 1/4 inch line is and where this intersection is that I'm supposed to match. All right, and if you want, you can actually take and put a little bit of glue along that and glue the fabrics if you want. Okay. So I'm going to remove the paper from the piece on the bottom, and where there's only 2 pieces, it just really has to be whatever's going to set. This is going to be against my feed dogs. I'm going to get that paper off. And the paper is next to the pressure foot. Now we're going to start sewing. And I'm going to start sewing. I'm just going to show you with my pencil. But I'm going to sew right on that line there like that. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit better job of gluing that piece along that edge. So I glued the fabric, but I didn't glue the paper, and so the paper started to move on me. Okay, so now I can take that, and I'm going to start sewing. And I am going to bring up one thing for you. I like to start by sewing on a little piece of paper. Just make sure there's no repositionable glue, but just start stitching on your paper like that. Now I can lay this underneath there, and it'll pull my piece through for me. And I'm sewing right on the line, and I need to be at a smaller stitch length. I'm going to go to 2. When I join these 2 pieces, I'm going to sew at a 0.2. Or I should say 2, not 0.2. Now when I'm done, I'm going to open it up and see if I matched. And if you match, then you can say good job, because it is a pretty good match there. So now I'm going to take this to my iron, and I'm going to press. And in your instructions, I got to find where we're actually on page 18 and actually 19. And so it tells me that I want to press that one. I'm going to press it towards my orange fabric. Okay. I'm going to cut the thread. And at this point, normally you can remove the paper. I'm just going to suggest you leave that paper until you're ready to sew these units together, because otherwise you're not going to know what this piece is. And you could end up putting it over here instead of over here. So we're going to leave the paper on it. And I'm actually going to put it up here where it belongs. I think it belongs there. Yeah, it does. So we're just going to go like this. Now I'm going to sew this piece together, which pairs up to this one right here. And I have it all pinned to where everything matches. Okay. And now we're going to remove the paper from the bottom. And now we're going to start sewing. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue to keep that piece, get that piece in position. I'm going to glue the paper as well. I'm going to glue the other end too. So I have my smart corners matched up now. And then we're going to start sewing on some paper. And I'm going to put my needle down for this. Then I lift this up and I place that piece right on top of the paper. And one of the things that works really well is, like, if it doesn't, when you put your pin, if it slides that piece on the bottom under, you can actually roll your pin around and it'll actually pull that fabric that's on the bottom over and line it up right with the paper the way it's supposed to. And that one lines up really good. Okay, now we're going to open it up and we're going to check. And good job on matching. So if you guys are sewing these together, some of the reasons why they don't match up perfectly, probably the number one reason is when you were actually doing your paper piecing, you didn't sew right on the black line. And that will cause it to be out of position for you. Now you can readjust it because your fabric does stretch. So if it doesn't match up, you can actually pick out, but only pick out about a ½ inch on each side of the seam, and then just move it into position and adjust it. Okay, you don't have to pick the whole thing out. All right. So I'm going to press this one. And we're going to open up those. Okay. So now if we look at this piece fits right in there like that. Okay. But you don't sew those together. You're just going to leave them into those sections because this piece adds on to here, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. Let's go ahead and clean this off.
It's also 2:43, Mom, just so you have an idea what time it is.
Okay, 2:43?
Yep.
So I have about 15 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to do one seam and then we're going to go over the cutting for the next one. All right, so this piece sews on to this, okay? And oh, I still have to add this little piece on down here. All right, so if you look at this, this is where my TRP line's going to match this piece up. This says it's going to sew onto a K group down here. And so when I flip this over, it matches just like that. And it also tells you that this side here attaches to the L unit. So I have all 4 of these pieces sewn together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to pull the thread out of the back. All right, and then I'm going to just pull the top piece off. And then I'm going to put my paper clip back on it. Flip it over the way it's supposed to be. And I can still see where those holes are. Now, if you're working with fabric that's a cotton, not a batik, and this one's a batik, you could actually mark those where you pulled that off. So I'm going to match that up. And I'm going to match that one. This is all bias, so I like to actually glue that, because once it's glued, then the bias, the feed dogs will pull those 2 pieces through the feed dogs at the same time, okay? The other thing is, if it seems to be a little bit big, just go hit it with your steam iron. And mine seems to be just a tad big, so I'm going to hit it with the steam iron. Let's see. There we go. All right. And what the steam does is it'll shrink that bias up. So now all I have to do is just sew that on. And I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance along there. I didn't do a very good job of gluing that, so I'm going to have to fix that, but we'll fix that later. So what I'm going to do is show you, so now this piece is actually going to sew onto that. However, I'm not going to get involved in that sewing until I have all of my border done and all of these pieces done for the whole quilt. Then you come in and you get it placed on the wall where it's supposed to go, and you start to do your symbol according to these papers. All right. Okay, so I'm going to move this stuff out of the way, and we're going to go over the preparation for the C group.
So the C class isn't going to happen until December 8th. So just we had to skip a couple weeks here, partly because of Thanksgiving and just some other things that we had going on. So you'll have a chance, those of you who actually are doing the wall quilt will be able to finish yours with what we've done in the last 2 workshops, plus the 2 videos that were recorded. And those of you who are doing the queen can finish all of your piecing. Don't do assembly past your block units until you do your C and D piecing, though, which will be in December. And also, Mom, while you're moving some stuff around, somebody asked, does Judy set the seams with iron before she opens them up?
Not necessarily when you're doing the paper piecing, but otherwise, yes. If there's no paper under there, then you're going to want to set your seam. But if you're doing the paper piecing, not necessarily.
And then hi Barb Leaders. She's in Elizabeth, Colorado. And Beth says, I needed that paper tip. So she liked your paper tip for sewing.
Oh, I like that paper tip too. It works really nice when you're working with smart corners because it'll pull those right down, right where you need to start on your lines. It works really good. Okay, so we're gonna jump over to the C group. And you guys have to go through and organize your book just like we did on all of the rest of them. So here are all of my colors. All right, these colors in your C group are not going to match up for like yellow is number 1 because those weren't written as a rainbow version. All right, and I'm correct. Am I not, Judelle?
Yeah. So
on the Queen, you didn't change any numbers.
No. So
okay.
What we did, let me pull up a picture of it, but we put here, just show this. Maybe we can just show the cover sheet.
Because I'm actually working with a mixer booklet here.
So we showed all of the warm colors go on the outside and all of the cooler colors go on the inside on that C border. I might see if I can pull up another
picture of it
on Quiltster that I can zoom into here. And so it's not labeled as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There's a C2 and a C3, and it's A, B, C, D and A, B, C, D. So that's how it's set up. So it's not organized quite the same way as some of the others.
However, if you follow the instructions in your book when you're setting them up, and when they're printed off of Quiltster, they do come in so your letters will match up to the instructions. So I have like an F2A is my pink, my purple is C2A is pink, C2B is purple, C2C is my blue, and C2D is my teal, okay? And then I go to my lighter colors. I have a C3A is red, C3B is orange, C3C is yellow, and C3D is my green, okay? But I have to reference all of these as either a C2A through D or a C3 A through D. So that's the way all of the strips are referenced, okay? So then after you get this filled out, you're gonna go back over, turn the page, and I just put a swatch on what was supposed to be cut because it's remembering whether it's the B or the C or the 3 or the whatever. It's hard. You have to keep going back and reading it. So do that reading first and then come back. And so my fabric C1 is my white. And then when I get down to fabric C2, I have a C2A through D, and I put those colors and placed them right where they were supposed to, so they're matched up. So I have my pink with my A, my purple with my B, and blue with C, and D, teal with my D, okay? Which matches the first page. And then I did the same thing on the next group. In the stacking order, it shows me that I have to have them stacked in that order as well. And so I set up my stacking order with little swatches right there. So those swatches will really help you keep everything stacked in the right order. Your fabric C2A, I did the same thing. So here are my C2A fabrics, and I have them matched up where they're supposed to be matched up as well. And so after you get that done, and the reason why you want to pay attention to that is because Judelle has the instructions in this set up to where if you cut everything in the order that you're cutting, then you're going to be able to chain the piece everything because it's already stacked in the chain piecing order for your colors, all right? So it really saves you a lot of time. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is, remember when we were doing the foundation papers for these star units? Well, if you look at this, when you look at your foundation papers, before you cut those out, go through and put your swatches on there, because you can follow your instructions and actually get your swatches set up, because it'll tell you when if you turned page, mine's page 2, I don't know what your page number is, but it's the second page in your Queen instructions. It has all of my numbers, colors right here. And so you can actually look at these and tell which unit. So this says it's unit C20, and this one says it's unit C1. So when you open up your foundation papers, and I believe I did have the paper done for you. Let me check. I actually cut them out already. But I do have all my swatches. So see, I have my swatches on here. And this is my C1 unit. So if I look at my picture here, this matches my foundation paper. Okay? When I get back to the end, it's going to match the fabric. So remember, we lay out the colors according to the paper so you can put swatches, but then when you start to assemble them, then you're going to be looking at it from the front side of the quilt instead of the back side. So C1, I have my colors on it. My unit C2, my unit C3, and C4, and then I'm going to keep repeating as I go until I get to number 20. Now, I will tell you guys, you need a table to where you can lay this all out, because if you try to do it on a little table, you're going to end up picking up the wrong papers and putting the swatches in the wrong spot. And then you have to pull them off and redo it. And then when you do it again, if you're missing one or you drop one of the papers on the floor, then you get to pull it off again. So it took me 3 attempts before I finally got all of these colors in the order to match this layout, okay? So be patient with it, but it will really help you when you start to sew.
Okay, I'm gonna cut in here too. So on the cover sheet for the Queen, the one we did out of cottons, so the bigger quilt image that you see, we used the cool colors on the outside and the warm colors on the inside. But on the batik version, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit here and you can see a little bit better. So in the batik version, we used the warm colors on the outside and the cool colors on the inside. So you can see the red, orange, yellow are bigger. It really doesn't matter. You can decide which 4 colors you want to use for either spot. It's just that we wanted to make it so that the same colors were used all the way around the outside and also on the inside for all 4 borders. So there are actually some people who have bought, now you'll have to look at the yardage on it to make sure you can do it this way, but they wanted to run red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple on the outside all the way around the quilt. So they had to have more yardage to do that. You'll have to read through your instructions and make sure that you have enough strips to make that happen if you want to do it that way. But this follows the instructions. It's easier than switching it up that way, so that's how we decided to do it.
And if you color it in Quiltster, no matter how you color it, it's going to tell you what numbers go where.
Right.
So if you want to change the format of how we colored it, you're still going to end up with the right strips on everything. Okay. So I'm going to show you. I also took all of my template layout sheets and I put swatches on the layout sheets as well. So this layout sheet has my red, orange, yellow, and green on it, and these layout sheets have my other one. And I just go through and get that all organized so that I don't accidentally pick up the wrong layout sheet and put it on the wrong stack of fabric. It really helps. because otherwise it's just too easy to make that mistake. All right, so here's my sorting. This is what I cut from Quiltster. So it told me to cut 4 14.5-inch white strips, which I have. If I open these up, these are all my 14.5. Okay, and then it told me I had to have 2 9-inch strips of the teal, and it tells me what the color is on it. I have 2 9-inch strips of the blue, and I'm going to put a paper clip on here because it's fallen off. And then that one was 2 9-inch strips for the purple, and then 2 9-inch strips for the pink. And then on the green, that's a C3 color. I have my D and my C, my B and my A. So that's the way it told me to arrange them in my instructions, okay? So you guys need to get your papers all organized. Go through that process of learning how you're supposed to do. Make sure you get your swatches on and get everything done, and then get to this point. You don't have to cut, and then I'll go through the cutting instructions in the next class. If you want to move forward with it, then move forward if you want to sew them. But I'm going to go through the cutting instructions, and then the other thing we're going to do is go through the how to assemble them as well. So what I'm going to do is probably divide my stack into 2 groups, and I'll cut out half of it and go through all of the paper piecing and sewing. So I'll have those samples for you, and then I'll go through the cutting on just 2 colors. All right, we'll figure out how to get that for you, but that's what our next class is going to be about, is how to cut it out and assemble. And then we'll also go over the queen, how to set up the queen. All right, I think we are done for the day.
Okay, so that was class number 2. I promised also a couple people that I'd let you see the cat in real life. So I'll see if she's outside the door. Otherwise, we might have to do that at a different time if I can't find her. But Ms. in. Ms. Ms.
I had to put her out of the room because she wouldn't stay off the table.
Okay, here's the kitty. Say hi, Ms. Say hi. Hi, everybody. All right, I think that's everything for our class today. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Since there was some technical difficulties, I'm going to actually load the recorded video onto our YouTube channel. So if you had one that was real choppy, you can go back and see that there. I'm going to leave the live version on Facebook just because there's lots of questions and different things there. And then if there's anything that was valuable from the questions on the YouTube channel that we didn't already get to, then I will post some questions on this so that you have a record of all of that live information as well. So anyway, we'll see you on December 8th, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.